All right, so we've got Meer here from ETHOS Performance. Meer has come on as a sponsor for one of the promotions Fight Night on August 1st. He has an extensive background in human performance and athletes, so it's great to have you on, Meer.
Thanks, Ricky.
It's good to be here.
Thanks for having me here.
Mate, excited for August 1st. How are you feeling for it?
I am. I'm feeling good. I was a part of the first show
Yep.
in a different capacity, but it was great to see the fights that night and all the logistics were running smoothly, which is good to see.
Nice.
So I'm excited to see how the next one goes ahead.
Yeah, I think this one is, everyone's saying it's going to be bigger and better, which is going to be exciting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can see the hard work that you put in behind the scenes. So, I mean, I've seen the arena before. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm excited.
Yeah, nice. So how did you actually get into doing all the athlete training?
That's a long story.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, from back in the day, I remember when you were fighting and you were training at PCYC with Rodney and you were moving around. So I had a competitive background as an amateur athlete a long time ago. We're looking at 10 to 15 years ago.
How many did you fight?
I did. I had some like amateur kickboxing, boxing fights, jiu-jitsu tournaments.
Yeah,
nothing crazy. And I think for me it was a realization that I wanted to focus on coaching and helping athletes rather than being an athlete.
Yeah, nice.
So I had that transition from competing to wanting to help the people that were competing. So back to your question, it started with me as a competitor, and then I started studying in the field. And I wanted to combine what I was learning into the niche of combat sports. Now, we're going back about 10 years ago now. And at that time, there really wasn't a place in Sydney that was doing things the way I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And really, focusing on combat sports, high performance. So I traveled overseas, took part in some mentorships and learning experiences. I came back, leveraged the relationships that I had here. So some of the boys at PCYC, Cohen,
Nice.
where I was doing my own jiu-jitsu, just started some small groups, and then it just started taking off organically, word of mouth. I had a few catalyst athletes that were great at the time for
nice.
spreading the word. People like Tyson Pedro, Taito Ivasa, Cambosis. And man, ever since I've just put all my eggs in that one basket. And
Did you have a facility then as well?
No. So look, any person who's in the industry understands that it's not easy opening a legitimate facility. Of
course.
Overheads are a real thing. Capital is a real thing.
Rent.
Is a real thing. And at the time, I just didn't have I hadn't earned the right to own a gym business then. I mean, I was young. I was 22, 23. So I was working at a commercial gym initially. I had to make money, and I wasn't making money from coaching fighters at the time, that's for sure. So I was making money PTing clients, and then I had small groups running outside that.
Yeah.
And I was coaching guys for free, $5, $10,
Yeah.
$20 a session, just to get my foot in the door.
100%.
And more importantly, just to get experience. So I was super passionate about combat sports and helping fighters. I still am. I mean, that's what ETHOS pretty much does every single day now. But it's a much bigger beast now than what it was me just coaching fighters, 8 years ago.
For sure.
So that's a nutshell of how it all started.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's exciting. Like I've actually seen your journey along
Well,
the
that's
way.
what I mean. I've known you since I was, competing as an athlete when I was 18. So I kind of saw you around the community. And it's a small community
It is,
once you're involved in it. So, I transitioned out of being an athlete and went into coaching.
Yeah, nice.
And I just put all my focus into that, and it's been great.
What's been one of the biggest lessons you've learned along the way?
As a coach or in business?
Both.
Um,
Both. Say as a coach first.
As a coach, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is to value the importance of establishing a good relationship with an athlete and their wider team, and not thinking that it's just what you're doing with them. I think with an athlete, if you can build a good relationship, it makes what you do as a coach a lot easier.
For sure.
So when I'm getting to know an athlete now, I get to know them outside of just what do you do for sport.
Yeah.
Because I know that if I can develop a good relationship with them, almost on like a friendship basis, then when I tell them to do something, the trust is there and they're going to believe in me.
Yeah, for sure.
So as a coach, that's what it is. As a business owner, one of the biggest lessons, I've learned many lessons, one of the biggest lessons is playing the long game and being patient when you're making decisions.
Yeah.
I think we can very easily make decisions on purchasing new equipment or changing business models or updating things.
Yeah.
I think it's important to learn how to read the market, read your customers, and make shifts when you need to.
Yeah.
And that's something I've definitely learned,
Amazing.
especially during COVID.
Sure. Man, but what you just said then, like you hooked me when you said about their wider team as well.
Yeah.
because that is so important. I know even when I was fighting, because there's so many different components. There's your boxing, there's your sparring, there's your strength and conditioning, there's your running.
Yeah.
And it's like you got to be in unity with the whole team. And it's like, so in terms of that, like, how do you see the importance or the like capacity for strength and conditioning, and where should that fit in the routine?
Look, I mean, I had a chat with a relatively high-level domestic mixed martial artist yesterday, and I gave him the analogy of he's the supercar, and everybody else around him is like the pit crew.
Yeah, nice.
But people on the pit crew have different roles, and there's different levels of importance, right? So, as the athlete being the center of focus, I think fundamentally the most important thing is their relationship with their head coach.
Of course.
Because you can be as strong as you want, as powerful as you want, as fast as you want.
Yeah.
If you aren't good in the skill component, you're likely going to lose. I'm talking about combat sports.
Yeah,
But I mean, that principle applies to all sports.
Yeah.
And so for me, one of the first things I like to do is create a connection with the head coach and make sure that what I'm doing is aligned with what they want for the athlete. Because you don't want your strength and conditioning coach telling you to do something and then your head coach has a conflict with that.
Of course.
Because then you as an athlete are going to be unsure about the plan and you won't feel good.
Yeah.
So I think as a strength and conditioning coach, it's important to understand that at the end of the day, we are generalists in what we do. So no matter how much your coach tells you or what you hear about specific training and, you know, if I add bands to my punches, it's going to make me a better puncher, it's probably not.
Yeah, okay.
I see what we do as the year-round servicing of a race car. If you don't service the race car, if you don't upgrade the parts, it's not going to perform effectively. But at the end of the day, you need a good driver behind the car.
Absolutely.
And that's the athlete, right?
Yeah, of course.
So what I think we do really well is we understand how to create those relationships, and through years and years and years of experience and prepared over 800 competitive combat sport bouts now over the last 8 years.
It's a big number.
It's a big number, and you just get good at picking up the nuances that are easy to miss. You know, when you should pull back, when you should change things, when you should test an athlete. So those are the things that I think are important as a strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I see our role fit in amongst the greater team. And look, I consider high performance as like an umbrella for an athlete. So if the athlete's under the umbrella, there needs to be multiple things that are looked after. You need their nutrition to be looked after by a professional.
Yeah.
And I'm very big on where you can outsource things to professionals.
Absolutely.
But I understand that at times athletes don't have the money and the means to do so. But I think these days it's a lot easier to access professionals at a cost-effective price.
Of course.
It really is. So dietetics, psychology, strength and conditioning, rehab, etc. And then at the center of that is your head coach.
Yeah.
They need to be on board with all those other pillars.
Sure. How do you, like, say, for example, if I'm just looking back on my career, if I was coming to you and I was like, fuck, because my training load's been massive, I've been doing heavy sparring, like the boxing's been intense, all high intense sessions.
Yep.
And I come to you see me a little bit spent. How would you adjust in terms of like the load in terms of the strength and conditioning?
That's a good question. So when we're onboarding an athlete at ETHOS, one of the first things we do is we sit down and we go through the current training schedule.
Yeah, nice.
And look, there's something when it comes to periodization for an athlete, people talk about long-term planning. I don't think long-term planning really exists with an athlete.
Okay.
In the sense that you can't plan something 3 months in advance and expect everything to go smoothly along the way.
Yeah, it never does.
Never happens.
Yeah.
And especially, I'm talking purely about combat sport athletes, there are so many variables that change from week to week, month to month.
Of course.
In camp, out of camp.
Even day to day.
Your coach says, hey, we've got a whole gym coming down for sparring on Tuesday. You've never sparred on Tuesday for the last 2 months.
Yeah,
because now you're suddenly sparring on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So communication is important. But if you had come to me at that time, I would have said, let's have a look at your current schedule. Is your schedule optimal? Are you doing too much? And we both know that combat athletes, fighters, they love to just do shit.
I was a serious
for the sake of doing it. I
sure.
remember you used to work your socks off. And you're the sort of athlete, like many fighters, if I tell you to do something and work hard, you'll do it.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's why I love working with combat athletes. Because work ethic is hardly ever a problem.
For sure.
It's how do you channel that to the right areas, right? So I would say, let's look at your schedule and see where we can make adjustments. Do you need to be running every single morning and doing 8Ks every single morning? Probably not, especially if you came to me as a 28-year-old athlete. there's smarter ways to go about things.
100% there is.
So I'd look at your schedule, I'd try to make adjustments there, and I'd say, let's do this for a week or two and see how you feel. So then it comes back to trial and error.
Yeah.
Which comes back to the whole relationship with a coach and an athlete.
Of course.
Hey, I don't know if this is going to be perfect, but why don't we try it, see how you feel.
Yeah.
We'll adjust our sessions in the gym so it's not high volume, so it's not going to add more fatigue.
Yeah.
Because at that point we're putting more dirt on a dead body. That's what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
So that would be my take. And obviously now we've got some testing resources that we can use to actually monitor your level of fatigue.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What are some of those? I wish I had those.
Basic things like, if you look at
Talking hurry.
certain tests are sensitive to change.
Yeah, okay.
What that means is it'll detect changes once it's away from your median, from your average. So if we do like a basic jump test on a force plate once or twice a week over the next 6 weeks.
You're going to get a proper read.
Correct. I can tell when you're 15% off your average for 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's exactly an indicator of you overtraining.
Yeah.
But what it does do is it allows me to have a discussion with you.
Okay.
Hey, Ricky, I'm looking at some of your data. Aside from the fact that you're telling me you feel a little sore, you're actually not performing really well compared to your average.
Yeah,
what's going on?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, look, man, coach has been smashing us. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to seem like I wasn't training hard.
For sure.
These are conversations I still have. I still have them.
I would need to have those conversations if I was
Let's go back. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
So that's what I would do.
Yeah, nice. So you're obviously involved with the shoot as well.
Correct.
And you guys have come on board helping out with all the marketing with the...
Yeah, we're doing all the digital content essentially on the night, real time.
Sensational.
Content.
Like, mate, I was so excited to unleash that because no other Pro-Am show has done that.
It was really good. I was happy with how the first night turned out. I mean, Vincent, my business partner, he's away right now, but he took it on as a challenge and said, I think we can do it.
Yeah.
And man, the team nailed it.
They did.
Yeah, they did. The guys were really good on the night. The editing was good. It was quick.
Yeah.
So I think we can nail it again on the second night.
Mate, I was super excited because even on that night, in that week, like I think 2 weeks after, we had 20,000 visits to the Instagram.
The Instagram went crazy.
It's popping off.
Yeah, it went crazy because I think people were talking, as in, how are they doing this?
Yeah.
But also, this is pretty cool because when you look at a lot of local shows, a fight happens and you want to know what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like even if you're there on the night, people are still looking at the highlights on their phones. Because they're sending it to their friends, they're sending it to their teammates.
Yeah.
So it just creates conversation, it creates discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's good because you're not going to have a big gap between the two events. So the page has still got a lot of traction right now, and you're taking that straight into the next one. So I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, it's mad. I'm super excited for you guys to be on board as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously you're doing. You guys come on board in terms of the athletes with ETHOS.
Yeah.
So what are you actually doing for the athletes?
So ETHOS is going to be sponsoring the next event.
Yeah.
The reason why I wanted to be a part of the event from the lens of ETHOS was, look, for me, it was always the vision for ETHOS was to always have a global impact on combat sports. And look, Ricky, for me now in my career, having coached combat athletes for almost 8 years now full time, we've worked with like so many high level athletes. We've worked with Olympians, world champion boxers, world champions in so many different sports, Commonwealth level athletes. Like I said, prepared so many fights, but it's always been important for me to provide high performance resources to athletes who aren't at the elite level yet.
Yeah, nice.
Because if you exactly right, if you look at athletes that are in the UFC and they're superstars, they have access to everything, right? And so they should because they've worked really hard to get to where they are.
Yeah.
But what about all the other athletes that are super talented, are working just as hard, but they don't have access to performance institutes because they're not there yet?
Yeah.
It goes two ways. You'd probably say, well, yeah, that athlete needs to just shut up and keep working.
Yeah.
And if they do the right thing, they'll get there.
Yeah.
My thing is, well, what if we provided similar or better resources for the athletes at the local level?
Yeah.
Because how can you say that the person that's in your roof right now isn't the next?
Mate, you know what's crazy, but what you're saying there is exactly what I'm trying to do with the promotions.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, all these guys, if they actually go all in with the boxing, the level in Australia is going to lift massively.
And it has already.
It has. Like, they're all guys like Cambosis, Zeus, they're all pushing it to that envelope. And these young guys coming through and seeing that, they're like, fuck, I want to be like that.
Yeah, and it's achievable.
It is.
It's right there.
Yeah.
These people they were just like me when I was their age.
Yeah.
So I'm very much with you on that. I think my whole mission with this is to support local fighters, domestic athletes, and give them resources that they might not have access to,
Yeah, nice.
but right here in Australia.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you don't need to wait till you're a world level athlete to have
this.
world level resources.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of like the systems that we have at ETHOS.
Yeah.
We use some of the best technology and equipment in the world. I proudly say that we are Australia's #1 high performance facility for combat sport athletes.
Yeah.
I don't say that with an ego tone. I say it with a proud tone.
Yeah.
Because I'm just saying a fact, and I want to share that with more athletes, share that with more fighters also in this case, because I know how much it can help them, and I believe where we are now in terms of the business and our network, we can really change the trajectory of an athlete's career.
100%.
From nutrition, dietetics, rehab, and then also connecting them with brands.
For sure.
From the other lens of the other business.
Yeah, yeah.
So on the night, what we're going to be doing is not getting involved with anything physical.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell the athletes how to warm up. I don't want to tell them what to be doing in the weeks leading up to, because I don't think there's a place to introduce anything new so close to a fight.
Sure.
Let them do what they're doing. Let them finish their camp.
Yeah.
But for any of the athletes that are competing on the night, we're going to be giving them 2 weeks full ETHOS athlete program at the facility.
Yeah, wow.
Work with our team, custom program, come and get coached. See what it's like.
Yeah.
If you're not in Sydney, work with one of our senior coaches.
Yeah.
One-on-one, full-time, remotely. Get a custom program, custom testing.
Yeah.
See what it feels like.
How good's that?
To have that support system. And then for everybody else attending, we're going to give them 50% off using a Wanderer code,
Yeah.
the ETHOS online program.
Yeah,
so there'll be flyers on every table, flyers on every chair. Scan a QR code, enter the barcode, and you have a program on your mobile phone within 24 hours.
Yeah, mate.
Videos ready to go.
For the fighters, that's a gold thing. Like, even I wish, I only got into strength and conditioning with WAFA.
Yeah, but at least you did it.
But that was only, that was at the tail end. Like, that was
Yeah.
only like probably about 8 years ago. And I was thinking, fuck, if I had this when I was 17, 18, when I was fighting, man, like, that would be an absolute game changer.
It's good that you have that realization, because Arlene, she just got back from her Bellator fight.
Yeah.
She had a win in Ireland, and we had an interview together, right?
Yeah.
Some content. And I asked her, what is one of the best career decisions you made? And she said, I'm so happy that I started working with you, because I feel like it extended my career.
Yeah, nice.
With injuries.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to 20, 19, 18-year-old athletes now,
Yeah.
I tell them, if you can get a good team around you that are professionals at what they do, you are setting yourself up for a lot of success.
For sure.
So when I look at some of the guys that we coach now, they're 20 years old, they're 19 years old,
Yeah.
they work with us,
Yeah.
they've got a dietitian,
Yeah. Perfect.
their schedule is planned out.
Yeah.
That's a good recipe for doing well.
100%.
You don't need to wait to make all the mistakes.
I'm just feeling I didn't have that when I was young.
But in hindsight, you can pass that on to all these other guys now.
Yeah, for
and that's
sure.
the beauty of hindsight.
Yeah. Man, I look at it and I'm like, I've said to Woff, to Rodney and to Arnell and that, I'm like, fuck, if I had this team now back then, I'm like, mate, it would have been unstoppable.
Exactly right. And look, even me, when I look back when I was a young athlete, I wish I had such a easy, accessible group of professionals in one place.
Yeah.
If I could just go to an ETHOS and go, okay, I've got a head coach that's going to be working with my strength and conditioning. Oh wow, he's just put me in touch with the dietitian.
Yeah.
And he's put me in touch with all of these other people.
Network.
This guy knows promoters, he knows agents, he knows all these people.
For sure.
So I wanted to build like a hub for the combat athlete that could look after them on all fronts, and that's what we're working towards.
Yeah, nice. It's exciting.
It is.
Even with like George and that coming involved, even Jim doing their managing.
Yeah.
If you can tie that in, that's
definitely,
pretty special.
definitely. And I mean, I think George is still competing as an athlete, so his focus is still on being a fighter.
But I know he's gonna have that next phase.
Correct. Once he's finished with boxing,
Yeah.
he can have such a big impact on Australian boxing. In terms of a managerial,
For sure.
etc.
Man, I truly think now, like, I know boxing in Australia is on the rise.
Combat sports in general.
It is.
I mean, you look at the amount of MMA athletes that are on Dana White's Contender Series, that are signed to the UFC. How many champions we've had?
Yeah.
It's booming right now.
It is. And I feel like we're on an upward trajectory as well. So you can see all these guys coming through, and all these next young guys, man, they're guns.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited for the August 1st show, because some of the fights that we've got lined up,
You've got some of those guys.
these guys are like they're not big names yet, but I'm just looking at. I'm like, fuck, all these guys got potential to fucking be big stars.
So the way I see it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is Wanderers Promotions brings a professional promotional experience
Yeah,
to grassroots domestic athletes.
correct.
And it starts giving them opportunities to get an idea of what it's like to compete
Yep,
at a really well-run operation
Yep.
before they make it to the,
big stage.
bigger stage.
That's correct. Yeah, but like initially when I started, it was like I was just going to focus solely on grassroots.
Yep.
Because I'm like, I want to give this opportunity for the next young guys coming through. Because there's not when I was looking around, there wasn't that many marquee amateur boxing fight nights.
It's not many.
There's not many.
No.
And I used to love. I remember when I was an amateur, there was a couple of fight nights I fought on. When you have the music, you have the belt, the best fighter of
Which
the night.
ones?
And I'm like, this was in Wollongong many
Yeah,
years
yeah,
ago. And I literally, man, like I remember, I'm like, fuck, I want to win that belt for the best for the fighter of the night. And then doing that was like, if you win that, it's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
And so I just remember that when I was younger, and I'm like, I want to give that opportunity for these guys coming through now. But since that night, I remember on my first amateur show, everyone was there was like, man, this is fucking awesome. And I just looked around, I'm going like, if I go all in with this can be something huge.
Definitely. And I think amateur fights are great. You get high skill level
Yeah.
amateur fights. They're brilliant to watch.
Yeah,
Sometimes I prefer watching the amateur fights than the
for
professional
sure.
fights.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think it's going to be a good night. You've got lots of fights.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing all the athletes. Many athletes that I don't know yet. So that's what's also exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I think longer term as well, like a big plan for me is to actually grow it to become. We've just taken over in terms of Memento. We've taken over Eastern Creek Raceway,
Oh, nice.
and so we've got the raceway there. It's
It's another venue.
it's 5,000 people.
Yeah, right.
And so I'm looking at that for early next year.
Yep.
And thinking like, well, we can do something massive here in
Yep.
terms of a big show, and then all televised and everything.
And there's no reason why you still can't have call it more grassroots fights.
Yeah.
With some bigger fights on the back end of the pro card.
Definitely.
You know,
Well,
if anything, that's going to help exposure for the younger guys too.
100%.
So
I
I
was,
like that. That's
I was
awesome.
thinking about doing a big boxing bonanza. And so you start like all day thing. So you get all the amateurs during the day, then you switch it over to the pros in the
Yeah,
night.
right.
So something like that.
That's good. That's a good idea.
It's good.
But your second show, so who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of years, right?
Yeah, 100%. Only going to grow. So for you now, what's the goal with ETHOS for the next? What's the big vision?
Look, for me, I want to eventually have a bigger facility.
Yep.
But the vision for me now is fine tuning what we're doing and creating an ecosystem where a fighter can walk into our doors and get access to the best coaching, the best dietetics, good physiotherapy, but then also have access to a network of brands and advice in terms of the commercial side of being an athlete. So that's the goal.
I think there's a big thing, what you just touched on there, that a lot of fighters don't actually think themselves as a business. And like that commercial side.
Correct.
A fighter has to learn how to market themselves, how to speak, how to connect with the right people to actually get the money that
Look,
they need.
we live in a day and age now where social media, it's just a part of the commercialization of
is.
business. It really is. So I think it's a pillar of almost every business. And an athlete themselves, as an entity, they're a brand. Whether they see it right now, because they might be young as an amateur, but eventually you're a brand.
Yeah.
So the athletes that do well and understand it, they start getting trendy with their video content, their reels, and they just play the game. Because they can then leverage themselves as brands to other brands.
Yeah, of course.
And instead of just getting free protein, if you've built your page and your brand,
Cash.
you can start getting money.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, and I'm sure most fighters will appreciate this comment, it gets to a point as a fighter, as an athlete, you're like, I don't want more protein. I don't need more free clothes. This is a commercial transaction.
Yes, correct.
I also should be getting paid for this.
Yeah.
So we're trying to shift that framework for an athlete, but they need to do the hard yards.
100%.
You get athletes like, oh, I hate Instagram. I don't want to post anything. Okay, well then don't expect brands to pay you.
Of course.
Because they're paying a ghost.
Yeah.
Unless you're a world champion.
Yeah.
But again, that's far and few.
Yeah.
So whether it's unfortunate, it's the reality that fighters have to now also be mindful of the fact that it's a digital era.
Yeah.
And it does play a role. Because
course.
even if you look at it at the highest levels in the world, the people that have more selling value, they're favorites for organizations.
Yeah, for sure. And mate, it's crazy. Like even I was looking at just for the last show, and you actually look at what guys are posting, and it's like you pay note of that. You
Yeah.
know, like, and it's like, well, this guy, you're going to put him on again in the future because he actually gets behind it and promotes it.
He sold 60
That's right.
GA tickets.
Yeah, yeah.
He had 3 tables.
Yeah.
I think fighters fundamentally, and I'll always stick by this, is be good at what you do as an athlete. Because if you're very good at that, everything else will come to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Just be mindful of those other discussions.
Yeah.
And I think if you can surround yourself with a high-performing team, it gives you a better chance of being a high-performing athlete. It's very simple.
Yeah, yeah.
If you look at it mathematically, it's a formula.
Yeah.
If you've got the best at X, Y, and Z, then the outcome
It definitely makes sense.
should be good.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
Good to have the right people around you.
Yeah. And I think we're moving towards a time in combat sports where you're seeing more adoption of strength and conditioning teams, dietetics, good nutrition, good
Yeah.
practices, recovery, all these things. So it's not a thing of, I'll get around to it. It's
a
if
must.
you're not doing it, your competitors are probably doing it.
For sure.
So put yourself in the best chances of winning.
Yeah, yeah. It's good. I think that competitive nature in Australia, it's actually building the
Great.
sport as
Yeah,
well.
definitely. I mean, it is.
Good. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Well, mate, very excited to have you on board for August 1st.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in and chatting.
Look forward to it.
Just the start, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm confident.
Good man.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
mate.
Thank you.
Cheers.